afternoon, everyone. Good evening. This topic I've been working on for quite some time, and I still don't believe I have it all the way prepared. But nonetheless, this needs to be talked. This needs to be talked about very, very soon because Florida has implemented not only passed the legislation Stop Woke Act, but now they have canceled African American history. Okay, they state that they canceled one particular course, which was labeled AP Advanced Placement African American History. But family, let me just tell you this: they're going to stop altogether teaching the kids in Florida African American history. Why is this important? Because this is the first form of legislation in quite some time that directly targeted Black people. And I'm looking for this to spread like wildfire throughout some other states, whether it be blue or red. But most likely, a lot of this is going to kind of grow and transpire into other red states. But I believe that even some blue states, because the way they're turning, a lot of these states, all these different colors and all these different ideologies and political views and political atmospheres, that anything can essentially happen when it comes to Black people. We have to understand neither Democrat nor Republican is our friend. That's first and foremost. Now, before we really start talking about this situation, I really want to point out Roland Martin, because I really don't talk about him that much on this channel, but I watch him with the side eye because we know he's a bootlicking boule that's doing his bidding for his white slave masters when it comes to media. But could he be turning a new leaf? And believe me, I say that not with a grain of salt. I say that with a pillar, a mountain, an entire galaxy of salt. Okay, family? Excuse me for the glare that I'm getting from the sun. I try to block it out as much as I can. But I want you to hear this. I was on Marcel Dixon's Twitter page, and I saw a clip that he retweeted here. And I want you guys to see this and hear this as well. Okay, so he's talking about, he's calling out the boule, so he's calling out himself. And he's calling out all these other quote unquote Black elite classes of people. Okay, so let's listen in on this, family.
I've called out the Divine Nine, the Prince Hall Masons, Eastern Star, the Links, all these Black groups. We can't be so focused where we're just meeting internally while shit is happening outside. I called the damn boule out at a convention in Bahamas. I said, how in the hell we got so-called the most prestigious Black men in America and we ain't got no public policy conversation at a convention? We got all this damn entertainment going on. I said, we got a Black attorney general from Nevada sitting right here, Aaron Ford, who's an archon. I said, we ain't discussing the election? I'm like, what the hell is this? Yeah, to all y'all folks who like, oh, the boule. Yeah, I called the boule out while I was there.
Hey, I'm only laughing, baby. You see the way he bucking his eyes? Oh, yeah, I called out the boule. Nigga, you called out yourself. That's what you called out. I mean, I'm just going to rewind a little bit before you guys can catch the bucking of the eyes. And it's probably come a time where Roland Martin is no longer getting paid by his bootlicking, boule, Congressional Black Caucus, white media friends. So now he's probably just turned up. You know, usually he's calling other Black people who don't side with their rhetoric stupid fools. But now, look at him, calling out the boule, bucking his eyes. Look again, family.
Oh, no, the boule. Yeah, I called the boule out.
I called out the boule.
There, and if y'all, they want to kick me out, knock yourselves out. But the point is...
See, that part right there, he already told you that he was part of the boule. Because he stated, if they want to kick me out, then so be it. One more time.
Y'all, they want to kick me out, knock yourselves out. But the point is, shit is happening, and folks are sitting here acting like, well, we just stand around, look around like it was no big deal. No, they ain't window shopping.
And you know what, family? If you ever watch Roland Martin's show, he usually have the usual suspects that you see right here on your screen. I'm not familiar with the two females. I am familiar with the female in the middle and the guy on the right. I forget their names, but they should be called the Black Agreeants. That's their new name, the Black Agreeants, because every time Roland Martin talks, they hardly ever disagree, and they just keep shaking their head like the bootlicking Negroes that they are. Okay, that's just my opinion of them. I want to hear one time they're gonna be chucking and driving, spinning and grinning, and they're gonna be nodding their head up and down. That's called the Black Agreeants Club. BAC.
But the point is, shit is happening, and folks are sitting here acting like, well, we can just stand around, look around like it's all no big deal. No, they ain't window shopping. They are organizing and mobilizing. I've called out the divine.
All right, fam. I just had to show you a little part of entertainment from Roland Martin. I mean, the bootlicking just gets totally out of hand. But nonetheless, let's get into the heart of the video right off the back here, family. I don't want to do no shucking and jiving myself. So we're talking about CRT. Let me stop the music very quickly. We're talking about CRT, family. And I went over to the Fair Fight Initiative to kind of give a very vague but broad definition of what CRT is, because a lot of us are not, I mean, we're familiar with the term, but not essentially what it entails, right? And it states here that CRT suggests that racism is a part of a broader pattern in America. At the highest level, CRT points that the racism is an implicitly woven into our laws, including the nature of policies and law enforcement in our communities. I don't see or hear any lies yet. Drilling down to everyday life, this systematic racism impacts everything from hiring practices to home loans. Okay, now we're talking about that racist policies are woven into American policies and laws, and as well as the culture. Okay, very, very important that we have to understand that racism is, okay, I understand that Florida come out with the CRT and then they're banning AP African American history, and they're talking about that we are indoctrinating because we're telling our kids, we're telling our people and corporations what to think instead of how to think, which alleviates critical thinking. But family, I'm telling you right now, I can go to one of Dr. Claude Anderson's book and show you the actual laws that directly targeted Black people with the word Negro and Black inside of it, okay? Because a lot of times when you get other bootlickers and sambos, they say, well, it don't say Black people, it don't say Negroes. Well, family, a lot of times, here's the thing. If you already classify people a particular and label them a particular thing, and then you make laws that target that very same thing, you don't think that's anti-Black? But I'm just asking questions at this particular moment because I want you guys to think for yourselves, okay? But nonetheless, that's the kind of a broad definition of what CRT is. Let's move on. Now, this is from the humanrights.our.gov. I just did a very quick Google search about how laws were passed that directly targeted Black people in Iowa out of all states. Put it right in plain sight on their government website. It says Jim Crow laws. A set of new laws known as Jim Crow laws was passed in the southern states and imposed racial discrimination and segregation against who? Black people, not Hispanic people, not Native Americans, not Asian Americans, not Indian Americans, not Jewish people, not anybody. Directly targeted Black Americans. Racial discrimination and segregation, okay? It states the term Jim Crow originally referred to a Black charter in the 1800s. Minstrel shows and white performers wore blackface and pretended to be Black. Although slavery had been abolished, many whites at the time believed that Blacks were inferior and sought to support their belief through religious and scientific rationales. The U.S. Supreme Court was inclined to agree with the white supremacist judgment and set the stage for Jim Crow laws with several of its decisions. In 1883, the Supreme Court declared the Civil Rights Act of 1875 unconstitutional and ruled that the 14th Amendment did not prohibit individuals and private organizations from discriminating on basis of race. Totally reverse the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment did, right? It also goes on to state that in 1890, Louisiana passed a law that requires Blacks to ride in separate railroad cars. Listen to this. It was a law that was passed. This is Iowa, okay? Talking about Louisiana. So when we talk about CRT, there are laws that were and now under some disguise that explicitly targeted and discriminate upon Black people in America, okay? Now, let me go back just a little here. Louisiana passed a law that required Blacks to ride in separate railroad cars. On June 7th, 1892, Homer Plessy, a carpenter in Louisiana who was 7/8 Caucasian, boarded a train and sat in a car reserved for whites. He refused to move and was arrested. The local judge ruled against Plessy in 1896. The Supreme Court upheld the lower court ruling. It had held the separate but equal accommodations did not violate Plessy's right. With the Supreme Court approval, Plessy's decision paved the way for racial segregation. They even went to court, family. They went to court and they said, yeah, you violated the law. We have a law here stating that, hey, these cars are segregated. You can't ride with white people. You 7/8 Caucasian, but you got one drop of black blood, you get your ass in the back, okay? It also states here, just to go a little bit further with this, Southern states passed laws that restricted Black American access to schools, restaurants, hospitals, and public places. Signs that said whites only or colored were posted at entrances and exits, water fountains, waiting rooms, and restrooms, directly targeting what? Race, not status, not economic income levels, directly dealing with race, because they say whites only and colors. By 1914, every Southern state had passed laws. Every Southern state had passed laws that created two separate societies, one black, one white. By World War I, even places of employment were segregated. The Negroes and blacks will work over there. They will go down that stairwell, and all the whites will work over here, and they will use the elevator, okay? So that's how things were, family, and this is Iowa State blatantly stating this on their state government website. Other Jim Crow laws did not specifically mention race, but were written, here we go, and applied in ways that discriminated against blacks. Literacy tests and poll taxes administered with informal loopholes and trick questions barred nearly all blacks from voting. Though more than 130,000 blacks were registered to vote in Louisiana in 1896, only 1,342 were on the rolls in 1904. I mean, family, I'm not going to go down this, but you can definitely check this out at humanrights.iowa.gov, where they broke it down very massively and beautifully. It was a gem to even find this, family, of the information that they're basically telling you what critical race theory is simply all about, especially when we go back to the Fair Fight Initiative, that at the highest level, CRT poised that racism is implicitly woven into our laws. They're not woven, they're blatantly into our laws, first and foremost, okay? Now, let's talk about CRT when it comes to Florida and Ron DeSantis. Oh, excuse me, mispronunciation. Ron DeSantis. Let's listen in on this, family.
Bill has received the governor's signature.
As well, yeah, HB 7, or the Individual Freedom Bill, surrounds our children's education and how they learn about race. WPTV News Channel 5's Ryan Hughes joins us live now from our newsroom with reaction. Ryan.
Honey and Kelly, the governor stopping at a school in Hialeah Gardens this afternoon for that bill signing, and he says this is an important part of freedom in the state of Florida. The bill passed in the legislature in March, and it has sparked national attention.
We're here today because we believe in education, not indoctrination.
Oh, the evil in this society, family, is so ratchet, because they are alleviating African American history from their study by the way of violation of the Stop Vote Act, which entails CRT, which directly is related to African American studies. So basically, they blatantly came out and said, Ron DeSantis blatantly came out and said, we are canceling African American history. They're teaching about Asians, Native Americans, Hispanics, Germans, Jewish, but they're not speaking about black people. I wonder why.
Governor Ron DeSantis getting cheers inside a school in Hialeah Gardens Friday afternoon, moments before signing HB 7, or the Individual Freedom Measure, into law, which bans educators from teaching certain topics related to race.
We believe that every single student matters, every single student counts. We are not going to categorize you based on your race.
The governor surrounded by supporters, and some
Surrounded
parents calling
by
this bill bold
a couple
and
of
courageous.
bootlicking Negroes, like these two black females. Unfortunately, they probably got paid a check for it, or they was probably duped. and manipulated into saying whatever they stated on this stage. Now, if you're looking at Ron DeSantis, he is literally watching every word she's speaking. He like, hey, don't fuck this up. I'll have your ass out of here faster you can say Kujigagalia.
Do not want our children racially segregated. We don't want our children to be looked at through the lens.
And family, we got to probably look at this lady's history. Okay, we have to basically see her background. Where is she from? Okay, I'm just looking at the system, looking at the forehead, I'm looking at the hair. There's some tall tale signs, and I'm not stating that she's an immigrant, but she is kind of giving off those kind of vibes a little bit. Let's listen in.
Of race.
But the bill has also drawn criticism. Critics believe it's a form of censorship that avoids teaching students about the nation's racist past and will drastically limit race education in schools.
We need to be able to talk about everything and make people feel included, not be excluded or exclude certain conversations because it makes people feel uncomfortable.
The governor says the bill is designed to prevent teachers from making students feel guilt or shame about their race because of historical events. But those covering the legislature for decades say critical race theory is nothing but a political issue to fire up the governor's base.
We all know that the fact of the matter is that CRT is not taught in the public schools in Florida, so we're getting rid of something that doesn't exist in our schools.
So I guess my question to you, family, is if you get rid of, eradicate CRT, critical race theory, that's directly targeted to Black people, and then blatantly with here, I think in the last couple of months, Ron DeSantis came out and stated that he's now counseling African American history, right? Which is Black American history in America. Now, when we look at what the Stop Woke Act entails, the Stop Woke Act, Wrongs to Our Kids and Employers Act, will be the strongest legislation of its kind. Schools, protecting our teachers and students, codifies the Florida Department of Education's prohibition on teaching critical race theory in K through 12. They are literally eradicating, excommunicating, erasing, deleting, wiping away African American history. What does that do for our people? So now I still believe this is going to spread like wildfire throughout the United States. People are going to kind of catch on the gravy train when it comes to critical race theory. And if you're not teaching your kids at home their history, then you definitely cannot depend on the school system, because the school systems in America have always been implicitly racist against our people. And now it's even more blatant in our face with the Stop Woke Act. And then laterally they say by teaching African American history in Florida is a direct violation of the Stop Woke Act. And this is what they intended all along. It states here there prohibit school districts, colleges, colleges and universities from hiring woke CRT consultants. Like, we don't want you to hire anybody coming in and teaching people about slavery, Reconstruction, Black inventors. See, it's not just about slavery, family. We're going to kind of get more into that. It's not just about slavery. It's even about Black contribution to this country. Right? Because when you do not teach African American history, you literally have to eradicate Black people from the textbooks altogether. How can you teach about Black people and then say that you're not teaching about African American history? You see, that is a contradiction. You can't do one without the other one, family. Let me know if I'm wrong here. Corporations, protecting our employees and workplaces, protects employees against a hostile work environment due to critical race theory training. You mean teaching co-workers of Black employees of their implicit bias? Like that you may have. Family, again, if you can't see through this, especially with the new cancellation of African American history in Florida, then your ass is definitely blind. Consequences. Provides employees, partners, and students a private right of action, strengthens enforcement authority of the Florida Department of Education. Tell me if I'm wrong here. I see we have JH in the room. We also have Jay Darnell. It says that America was built on a lie and they want to keep it that way. Absolutely. Black history isn't getting taught anywhere. So what is the problem? Okay. And he's absolutely right to a certain degree. True black history is not being taught in this country. Okay. So I cannot disagree with the brother there. Can't even call ourselves black if this keeps going on. That's what they're trying to do, family. Let me move on because there's more to cover here. Definitely more to cover. It states here that Florida bans race theory from his classrooms. Okay. And basically what they're stating, family, I just kind of did a quick search on black. Right. I'm just going to show you how many times they mention the word black so you don't think I'm pulling your chain. It says, including killings of black people by police, have intensified debates. Particularly blacks, Native Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans argue that dissenting perspectives are often missing from textbooks and classroom discussions. Then it states that as well as the civil rights movement and contributions of blacks, Hispanics, and women to the country. Let me scroll down. One woman implored the board to reject the new rules, saying it was important for children to learn about how the legacies of slavery, segregation, and Jim Crow still creating an uneven playing field for black people. Because here's the thing, other black students, Asian, Hispanic, white, Native American, whatever race that's in America is a melting pot. You're going to have to understand that these people in this new society and this new generation are going to go up and say, why are black people the one who are robbing all the banks, killing all the people, have the highest homelessness rates? Because they're not getting taught African-American history to understand the suppression and oppression and the discrimination and the racist tenets of this country that not only woven, but is at the very foundation of the United States of America. Why won't we teach those things? Oh, because there's going to be white guilt. There's going to be other nationalities and races guilt because they now understand, they have the history, they have the knowledge, they have the information of what occurred to black people in this country, but you're going to eradicate that by laws. This is called the new Jim Crow. There's actually a book called The New Jim Crow, but this is the new Jim Crow. The Stop Woke Act based upon CRT, and you blatantly come out state that African-American history by teaching that violates the Stop Woke Act that includes CRT, critical race theory. The new rules also forbids use of the 1619 Project, a classroom program spawned by a New York Times project that focused on teaching about slavery and African-American history. The project's name refers to the year popularly believed to when slaves were first brought to colonial America, family. Let me show you this as well.
And welcome back on this Friday. Well, we have heard from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis that woke goes to die in Florida, and now his latest move seems to align with that. The Republican governor's administration is blocking an advanced placement African-American history course from the state's high school curriculum. In a letter obtained by ABC News, the Florida Department of Education rejected the course, calling it inexplicably contrary to the Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. Joining me for more, ABC News Deputy
African-American history. Listen, family, African-American history violates the Stop Woke Act in Florida. Thus, since it's a violation, they canceled African-American history courses in the high schools in Florida.
Political Director Avery Harper. Wow, Avery. So I guess let's start with, how did the Department of Education make this determination?
Right. Well, we don't know. It's not entirely clear. I've asked the Florida Department of Education for more information about how it came to this decision. What we do know is that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has made issues surrounding education central to his reelection effort and to his new term. If you listen to his speech from his inauguration earlier this month, he did say that Florida is where woke goes to die. And he said that he is trying to root out trendy ideologies from the state school. That has largely translated to not only restrictions on conversations and curriculum about race, but also about gender identity and sexual orientation.
Right. So, and we've.
So I'm not going to tell you here too long when it comes to that, family, because there's just more information when it comes to this whole critical race theory, counseling of African American history that we need to cover. Okay. So I'm just going to show you here what's going on. It states that the Florida Department of Education has rejected an advanced placement course covering African American studies, saying the class indoctrinates students to a political agenda. So teaching about Black people, the history of how we got here, the struggles that we've been through, the laws that have been put against us and banned us and suppressed us and segregated us, even though in some forms I do believe segregation was a great thing, until they came up with bombing of all the Black Wall Streets that we had, the Red Summer of 1919, where they destroyed a lot of Black towns, redlining, where they put highways through our neighborhoods and brought all sort of traffic and drugs to our neighborhood. When it comes to the three-letter agencies, introducing crack cocaine, flooding, and putting a lot of our towns underwater. There's been so many things, demonic, evil, to destroy us in each and everywhere, by body, by psyche, economically, politically, you name it. But teaching African American history is an indoctrination of a political agenda. Let me move on. It states here, there's nothing particularly ideological about the course except that we value, okay, this is one of the people who created the course, because it almost took them a decade to put this course together. There's nothing particularly ideological about the course except that we value the experiences of African people in the United States, talking about Black Americans, right? It goes on to say, but state officials have taken issue with the possibility that the course would teach about Black Lives Matter and the reparations movement. Family, I'm from Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., you have an area downtown called the Mall, right? Where the mall consists of over 200 some odd museums. And there's one particular museum that this government, that this country gave $200 million to create the Holocaust Museum, to showcase, inform, and teach about the treacherous Nazi regime that did all these despicable things to Jewish people. And when we talk about reparations, not only has this government given Jewish people the Holocaust survivor reparations, that something occurred in Germany, but even the German government, in which they should have, and which they're still doing, is give reparations to the Holocaust survivors. It states right here, Holocaust survivors receive German reparations to this day. Germany started making reparations payments to Holocaust survivors back in 1950 and continues making payments today. So when people are asking about reparation, how much is it? Is it a one-time payment? No, we want to get reparations exactly the same way as Native Americans in this country gets it, exactly the same way as Jewish Americans and the Jewish people over in Germany, the same way that people around this world receive reparations in the form of cash payments. Then we can talk about everything else. Let me move on. It says here in Germany, the reparations program is called literally Making the Good Again. Making the Good Again. Germany's reparations work went beyond money. I'm right here, family. It went beyond money. It included a commitment to ongoing truth-telling and outlawing the Nazi Party. Ongoing truth-telling. Can I highlight that? Ongoing truth-telling. Let me go back. That's what reparations is. Ongoing truth-telling. But Florida, Ron DeSantis, has literally excommunicating African American history that disconnects any reparations conversations, that disinforms people about slavery and segregation and Jim Crow and the Black Reconstruction, the Harlem Renaissance, the summer of 1919. I mean, family, it's so much to cover, right? And that's when we kind of really get into the conversation of white guilt. Like, oh, we teach the Floridians about what we done to the Blacks, then they're going to be indoctrinated with hate and guilt, and they're going to feel bad. How about just cut the check? But anyway, The reason why I showed you that, family, is to show you direct correlation to how this country is a large contradiction. But family, wait, there's more. There's more to cover here. There's a lot more to cover here, because what's in the course? Experiences and contributions of African Americans through a variety of lenses, not just slavery, right? Not just slavery. We didn't want to just focus on slavery, although slavery is a part of it. We wanted to give a comprehensive view of culture, literature, historical development, political movements, and socialism or social movements, right? They wanted to cover the entire aspect of African American history, not just talking about slavery. We're talking about culture, literature, historical development, political movements, social movements. It states here that it will explore the origins of the African diaspora to Reconstruction, the Harlem Renaissance, the Civil Rights Movement, and then some. It will also examine historical trailblazers like Valerie Thomas, a scientist who invented the illusion transmitter. We're talking about Black inventors, family. We're talking about people who contributed large advancement to this country. And we're talking about technology and engineering, and also in the medical field. So they're going to eradicate African-American history. You can't teach about Charles Drew. You can't teach about Benjamin Banneker, Gerd A. Morgan, Marion Van Brown. You can't you can't talk about George Washington Carver, Granby Teal Woods. You can't talk about any Black person, because that is African-American history. You can't talk about Marcus Garvey, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X. You can't even teach about Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King, the only reason why Martin Luther King was popular and famous is because of what? Civil rights. Civil rights. In the last 2 years of Martin Luther King's life, what did Martin Luther King talk about? Reparations. He said, we're going on a march on Washington to get our check. You ever heard his last speech? I've been to the mountaintop. See, the only speech that this system of white supremacy focus on is I had a dream. They don't want to talk about I've been to the mountaintop speech or any of the little news interviews that he did prior to his assassination. So I guess Florida is not going to talk about any Black people, because all Black people are part of African American history. All right. I'm not going to, here we go. What's not in the course? We proudly require the teaching of African American history. We do not accept woke indoctrination masquerading as education, he added. So we proudly require the teaching of African American history. How can you do that and you just ban the teaching of African American history? You can't do both. You can't proudly require it and then counsel it. Hopefully you guys are with me. I'm not making this stuff up, family. I'm not making this stuff up, because here's the important part. Let me see what you guys are saying really quickly here. I see my brother Jermaine Anderson. JH says, for this to be a political high is sad, and he's running for president of America. Okay. Jermaine says, if this is your first time to the channel, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that as well. Okay. How sad that these are adults. You have to be a special kind of weak, try to hide your history. They really did a number on the word woke. Somebody tell them that ain't what it means. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And we have to understand, family, the word woke is just a trope word for Black people. We understand it's a replacement word. Stop Black people. They're talking about stop woke, because white people don't use the word woke. They understand that we've been using the word woke ever since the 70s. Okay, when Black consciousness was on a rise. Oh gosh. Will it be taught that a lot of Nazis came to America after World War II? Who knows? African American Studies is not the first time that advanced placement program has authored a class on a community history and culture. In fact, there are courses, listen to this, family, there are courses on European history. European history, white people, okay. German history, what is German history going to really get into? What is German history really going to get into? It's really going to get into the Holocaust and what the Nazi Party out of Germany did to the Jewish people. That's what it's going to get into. But you're going to talk about their strife, their historical murders and death and all the horrible things that the Nazi Party did to Jewish people, but you don't want to talk about African American history because you know that's going to be directly linked to slavery, Jim Crow, and reparations. Also, Chinese history and culture and more. So you're teaching about everybody else except Black people. It says here the College Board told NPR that the African American Studies course has been nearly a decade in the making. So in one swoop, one loop of a pen, Ron DeSantis had eradicated Black American history from the textbooks, from the Department of Education curriculum. Let me show you something else. So I went to this Florida Education Foundation website, right? High School U.S. History. And what I found something very daunting is that a lot of Florida history that was being taught, probably 50% of it was dealing with Black American history. Let me show you this. Now, I'm going to try to blow this up as much as I can. Let me see if I can blow this up, family. Let me just blow this up a little bit more. I can't zoom in or zoom out. All right. I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can go to one page here. Let me go to read mode. There we go. Now, if you look at the highlighted questions that I have here, a lot of these highlighted questions are directly linked to Black Americans, right? How can you talk about these particular things that are highlighted in yellow and not talk about Black people? Civil War. How can you talk about the Civil War and not talk about Black people and the Buffalo Soldiers? Okay. It also say accessing the influence of significant people of groups on Reconstruction. How can you speak about Reconstruction and not talk about Black people? Describe the issues that divide Republicans during the early Reconstruction era. Same thing. Distinguish the freedoms guaranteed to African Americans and groups with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. The next one, Jim Crow laws, right here on the middle page for African Americans. Compare the effects of the Black codes, okay, in the free people, talking about Black people. Review the Native American experience. If you notice throughout CRT, throughout the banning of African American studies, you don't hear about any other group. What I'm showing you is from the Florida State Education Foundation webpage of the high school curriculum that over 50% of the history they was going to teach in their courses, they're going to eradicate, eliminate, and delete because it has a direct correlation to Black people. Third page, identify significant inventors of the Industrial Revolution, including African Americans and women. Again, family, I want to beat this in your head. How can you talk about Black people in any other reference if it's not in the history and the great things we've done in this country and for this country? I don't know how they're going to get around this, but they will. Oh, they will. Compare the experience of European immigrants in the East to that of the Asian immigrants in the West. With the Chinese Exclusion Act, gentlemen agree with Japan. They're going to teach about that. You know, Germans are going to talk about immigrants, Chinese, Japanese, all of those people, right? Then we go to examine the provision of the Treaty of Versailles and the failure of the United States to support the League of Nations. The Treaty of Versailles, you're going to talk about France, right? Then it states, examine key events and people in Florida as it relates to United States history. Are you going to talk about the Black Seminoles? Probably not, because that has to do with what? Black American history. We're going to talk about the Spanish-American War, what that's going to link to Hispanics. So you're going to talk about that as well. So I'm kind of giving you this correlating, compare and contrast of how some history they're going to teach about other people, but anything directly talking about Black people and now history, they're going to eradicate. They're not going to even, they're going to totally wipe this away from the textbooks. Just like in Texas, what did they do? They took out the word slave and slavery and put it with workforce and laborer. Oh, yeah. Access how Jim Crow laws influence the African Americans. They got to wipe that away. Excuse me. I'm on the next page here. My apologies, fam. Let me go one more. All right. We come down on our first page, compare the experiences, African American, Hispanics, Asian women. See, we're going to talk about all of these things while these people were serving in Europe, but we're going to eradicate African Americans. Next one down. Compare how the war impacted German Americans, Asian Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Georgia American, Native Americans, women and dissenters in the United States. So if you're counseling African American history in schools, how are you going to have this subject? How are you going to teach this subject? This is coming from the Florida State Education Foundation. This is the high school curriculum of history topics that they will cover. But again, since they are banning African American history, how are you going to teach about all this other history? Are you going to say, compare how the war impacted German Americans, Asian Americans, blank, blank, Hispanic Americans, Georgia Americans? Are we just going to be dots on a page? Are we going to be X's on a page? Are you going to totally white us out? White us out? Analyze support for the resistance to the civil rights for women, African Americans, Native Americans, and other minorities. So again, it's going to read analyze support for and resistance to the civil rights for women, Native Americans, and minorities. You're going to have to wipe out African Americans altogether, right? Because again, you ban studies of African American studies. But family, I'm not going to go on a tangent here and keep going on. You see all the things I've highlighted, page after page after page after page of all the things that they are going to eradicate from the textbooks of history in Florida State. And I believe that this is going to grow to other states as well. But you see, I've highlighted other things to compare that with, other things they will teach about, like Vietnam War or the Holocaust on the World War II on Jews. About the things, the treacherous, demonic, evil things that the Germans were doing to the Jews. And we have to understand there's black Jews and white Jews. And at the time, there was African Americans over there at the time that got put into those concentration camps, as well as Afro-Germans, right? So because the total amount of Jews that they have on record that got killed, murdered, all sorts of things that occurred to them was 6 million, but altogether it was like 11 million people that was killed during that time. It states here, describe the attempts to promote international justice through the Nuremberg trials. Okay, that's dealing with Germany as well. Describe the rationale for the formation of the United Nations, including contribution of Mary McLeod Bethune. Anybody know about Mary McLeod Bethune? She was an educator who started her own school system down in Florida, black woman. Okay, historical black college down there in Florida. They have to eradicate her too, because that's Black American history. That's Black American history. Family, is very important to know what's going on in this country because we are directly being attacked on all fronts. We're directly being attacked on all fronts. This is from the governor's website of Florida. Governor DeSantis announces legislative proposal to stop woke activism and critical race theory in schools and corporations. I'm not going to go through all this. I'm going to jump right to the bottom because he hits it right in the jugular. After counseling African-American history courses in Florida, K through 12, family and colleges and universities, family, let me tell you, the racism is so out in the open. It's so in your face, up front, blatant, smacking you dead. I don't understand how the black population hasn't risen up and went against this, okay? Because right here, it says national examples of critical race theory include, who do they start with? The one and only Black Americans. A Philadelphia elementary school forced fifth graders to celebrate Black communism and stimulated a Black Power rally to free Angela Davis from prison. At this school, 87% of the students will fail to achieve basic literacy by graduation. Next one, Seattle Public Schools told teachers that the education system is guilty of spirited murder against Black children and that white teacher must bankrupt privilege in acknowledgement of their thief inheritance. Coming down here, Buffalo Public Schools taught students that all white people perpetuate systematic racism and forced kindergartens to watch a video of dead black children, one of them about racist police and state-sanctioned violence who might kill them at any time. Where's the lies in that? Are they snitching on themselves? Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me just highlight this a little bit. Are they telling on themselves, family? They don't want to show the kids in the system of white supremacy, and especially the white supremacists in Florida, what they're doing to black people. See, family, this racism is in clear and present danger. They're not hiding it. They're not using trick words or trick language. They're not giving a lot of word salad. They're not being they're not using a lot of verbiage. They're hitting the jugular right in your face. They're not playing any games with black people no more in Florida. They're not playing any games with black people in Florida, not anymore. They're not doing that. Nope. They said Florida gives its reasons for rejecting proposed African American Studies course. They're not playing any games with black people anymore, family. Let me show you this. It states here, Florida rejected proposal advanced replacement course focused on African American studies because it included studies of topics like the movement for Black lives, Black feminism, and reparations, according to a list of concerns provided to CNN on Friday by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. Okay. It goes on to state here that Florida Department of Education also questions the inclusion of certain Black authors and historians whose writing touched on critical race theory and Black communism. For example, the state objects to the inclusion of writing by Robert D.G. Kelly, a professor of American history at UCLA, who warns that simply establishing safe spaces and renaming campuses building does nothing to overthrow capitalism, according to the document. What are they talking about here, family? A bunch of this bullshit things they're putting in this to say, you know what? We don't really like black people. We don't like Negroes. And we don't want to teach white people about it at all. We don't want them to feel no sympathy of all the Black homeless people. We don't want them to feel any sympathy for all the Black people who are getting killed by the hands of the police, who are being wrongfully incarcerated, who are getting laid off their job without any cause at all. This is basically racism blatant in your face, discrimination, you name it, they're doing it. The state also said the course framework for the study of reparations, the argument to compensate Black Americans for slavery and other historical atrocities and oppressive acts includes no critical perspective or balancing opinion in the lesson. But family, when they teach about Native Americans and what occurred to them and the reparations they're receiving, they have to talk about reparations. When they talk about the Holocaust and what the Nazi Party at the time did to those people, and that the country that allowed it to happen, Germany, since the 1950s is still paying the Holocaust survivors and their descendants reparations. Key word is that those descendants of those Holocaust survivors are receiving reparations. So when we talk about the Black Holocaust, aka slavery in America for foundational Black Americans, going through Jim Crow, Reconstruction, Black codes, etc., and we are the descendants of those people, we can't talk about reparations though, because they have literally eradicated African American history from the textbooks in Florida. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Here we are. She was a Polish citizen, not German. German reparations didn't cover her family's stolen Polish property. When eventually offered reparations for her forced labor, she refused it at first. The payment was minimum, the conditions demeaning. They wanted to see her U.S. tax returns. This is why reparations are an ongoing thing. Because people say, when will it be enough? How much money? What do we have to do to right the wrongs of America from the descendants of foundational Black Americans who was put into slavery and those who went through Jim Crow and totally demolished and put in dilapidated countries and towns and redlining and now we're gentrifying and we put Black towns underwater. We bombed and burned cities and hospitals and insurance companies and banks and stole and raped and pillaged and robbed all these Black people. When is it going to be enough? Well, a Polish lady said that the reparations was minimal and she refused them. She said, I worked as a slave laborer for 5 years and 8 months and 2 weeks, and all they were providing was a few $1,000s. See, family, when people say, well, reparations is a school grant, you can go to any school you want to, that will allow you in. We will provide funding for the HBCUs where you can go get a degree in sociology and psychology. Those, in some cases, even though we need them, family, but we know that they don't pay that much money. And when we tell them that reparations are direct cash payments, they turn a blind eye to it. They don't want to have those conversations. Oh, reparations is a business grant. Reparations is a hug. Oh, we need an apology. You can keep your apology. You can keep all your grants. Just give us the money. Everybody else is getting the money, family. Everybody else is getting the money. Sarah finally accepted the funds around 2004 to help one of her grandchildren with college expenses. I didn't take the money as reparations, but rather as compensation for my labor, she said. I didn't want anything from the German government. Well, let me show you something else, family. This kind of just came to mind as this Polish lady was talking. As she was talking, because guess who is asking for money now? Guess who is asking for money now? Yes, Poland is asking for money now. Poland demands $1.3 trillion in World War II reparations from Germany. Everybody's getting paid except Black Americans. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. See, I don't get it, family. We have all these people in the Black American society, and we really should not be infighting about reparations because all these other countries, they're not fighting about what reparations is. They said reparations is money, cash payments. Here we go. It says Warsaw, Poland. Poland foreign minister on Monday signed an official note to Germany requesting to Germany requesting the payment of about 1.3 trillion in reparations for damage incurred by occupying Nazi Germans during World War II. And listen to this, family. Go down to this paragraph right here. It said that expresses his views. The two sides should take action without delay to address the effects of Germany's 1939 to 45 occupation in a lasting and complex, legally binding as well as material way. Hold up. 1939 to 1945. We're looking at what, 6 years, 1.3 trillion. And when you're talking about the transatlantic slave trade and slavery here in America dating back to around what, 1590 or so. Okay, 1590 or so. Oh yeah, way past 1619, family. It was about 90 years before when the first recorded slaves were here in America between the Georgia and South Carolina border. Let me show you very quickly here. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna show you because a lot of you still stuck on that 1619 crap. No. It's way before that. 15 something. Now let me make sure I can get this back. Make sure I can get this. And this is coming from history.com. Let's see here. Let me see. Give me 1 second, family. I have to find this. Some of these stories are very hard to find. I want to say it was 15. I want to say it's 1592, something like that. But I forgot the timeline here. I should have had this prepared, but nonetheless, let's see if we can find this information. See if we can find this information. Let's see here. First class. Give me 1 second, family. I do apologize. Now, this right here kind of gives some information about it because here's a slavery timeline. Okay, here's a slavery timeline. Now, it states here, back in the early 1500s, of when the first African slave stepped foot on the Americas. You guys see this right here? It says first African slave to step foot on what now is the United States of America. Okay, November 1528. A slave called Esteban, the first African slave to step foot. And this is because when the Spanish conquistadors brought over roughly over 100 slaves to America, a lot of people don't know about this, between Georgia and South Carolina. So we need to understand that slavery in America happened well before 1619, roughly 100 years. I said 90, so I'm still right on those accounts. So family, if you didn't know that, now you know. So we're talking about hundreds of years versus 6 years. And I'm not stating Poland don't deserve their money. I'm not stating that. I'm just stating that we definitely deserve our damn money and then some, okay? So family, that's all my information here today. I'm gonna hit some of your notes up before I leave out of here. Thank you, Jermaine Anderson, once again for moderating, sir. I do appreciate your time and your hard work. Who do we have here? Let's see. A lot of notes coming through. Give me a second, family. It says, will it be taught that Nazis got a lot of their treatment to the Jews by watching how the white people treated black people? Good question. Good question. I'm putting all these on the screen today. I hate the fact that we don't prioritize teaching our children our own history. Most people I meet are more concerned about their children blending into society so they can secure a so-called job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. B. Wiz says, what are you saying is completely wrong? The bill allows black history, including black contribution to society. It does. It does. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that it allows black history because everywhere I go, it keeps stating that he rejected African-American studies. I'm so confused. And African-American studies is not just talking about slavery, Jim Crow, race, implicit bias. It's talking about everything. But if you reject the entire course, guess what? They got to go back, revise and revamp it. So for right now, they are eradicating Black American history from the Florida textbooks. So B-Wiz, you might want to go guess again, because this is not coming from me. I don't have bias. I'm just reporting the damn news. So maybe you need to go do your own research. He said, I think that you should go read the bill and stop going by what the news outlets are telling you. The news outlets are telling me, hold on, usually I don't do this, family, but this for shits and giggles, right? Now, here we go. Let's go back up here. Stop woke. This is an act passed by Ron DeSantis back in June, July of last year, some time frame. And it says prohibit school districts, colleges, and universities from hiring woke CRT consultants. Okay, it states that hostile work environment due to critical race theory. Okay, we're talking about critical race theory. And then when we go back into the definition of critical race theory, we're talking about suggests that racism is part of a broader pattern in America at the highest level, that the racism is implicitly woven into our laws, including the nature of policy and law enforcement in our communities. So you do legislation for a Stop the Woke Act that is CRT, and then you state that by teaching African-American studies that violates CRT, which you made legislation that prohibits CRT and CRT is teaching African American studies because it teaches people about slavery and reparations. Okay, you right. Fuck out of here. All right, what else we got here? Anyway, family, thank you guys for joining me here today. I know that we're always going to have people who try to thwart and deflect the argument and conversation. But when we read things for what they are, there's always going to be some biased commentary. But when we stick to the facts, right? Oh, don't go by what the news people are telling you. Oh, I shouldn't go by when I went to Florida's government website and downloaded what the Stop Woke Act was, and then research what CRT was, and then how the African American studies violate CRT, which is written in the Stop Woke Act legislation that Ron DeSantis passed last year. Yeah. I'm just making that up. I should go read the bill, which I've already done, but nonetheless, a good, healthy argument is not bad, especially when it comes to social media. You guys have a great and wonderful day. I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm out.